When I began to make performances, there was a lot of physical work going on in the 70s. A lot of sort of self-punishing was happening. People starving themselves and throwing extreme experiences to the body. And I didn't want to do that because I'm quite squeamish. And so I thought I would look at putting myself on the line as a personality rather than as a physical, partly physical, but so it's obviously me, but it would be about how can I push myself to the limit, psychologically maybe, or something like that. And then I found I was funny as well, people seemed to laugh. Or also I felt I had this relationship with an audience that I didn't know I had, because I never acted or anything like that at school. But something seemed to work in terms of me and them. I had an exhibition at the Acme Gallery, and that led to me working at the Acme Gallery as a kind of administrator, assistant person. And that was like a piece of gold dust, because although it was a fairly menial job, it was like I was a sponge for all this information.
Yeah.
And started to realise residencies were out there, so I began to apply. And that was the beginning of really building a career, I think.
So for the last 2 years we've been working on an idea that has now become a reality, and that is to run and manage a fully functioning cafe and present the entire business as art. So in May we're opening the cafe in an empty shop in Cambridge, so it'll be a pop-up cafe. And we've commissioned some artists that we've met over the last 10 years whose work we love to perform as waiters in the cafe, or be waiters and then possibly perform around that. And Jenny and I are there every day as the all-encompassing hosts. And there's a menu, and there's good food and drink, and we want to make profit. And we need to make profit for it to continue to stay open. And we want it to continue to stay open so that it will sustain our practice long term, away from having to rely on grants and Arts Council funding.
Well, over the period that I worked in industry, I didn't apply for any public funding for all those years. I had a lot of preconceptions about industry, and I made a work that very much critiqued business, which was my performance called The Revolution, You're in It, where I satirised business and Thatcherism, viciously, really.
The world is changing, ladies and gentlemen. We are in a revolutionary age in Britain. So, you have to come to me and prove. Yes, prove, Mr. Lumley. Prove to me, Baby Savage, that I should give you money.
So that was through my work as an artist, but on the other hand, my work, my interest in people had led me to thinking of really, I was partly looking back to the artist placement group, where artists had been put in really quite unusual situations, living on a ship. I mean, the kind of thing is quite normal now, but in the 60s hadn't really been done, 60s, 70s hadn't really been done. And so when I was running a workshop in Greece, and a man came up to me who said he was the founder of a company that was rapidly expanding, and he was interested in how I built a community. I was very keen to sort of follow that up. So that led on to me working there in his company a day a week as an artist in residence. I started doing various activities that were about building community, which came really from my art practice. I started was a very bland environment. I started making it more visually interesting. Started bringing performers in to do kind of spontaneous things. And gradually, the confusion around me being an artist in that world was not useful. So I changed my job title to Visionaire, which was a sort of a joke. But I had it on the business card. I still have it on my business card. And I might have told you before that once I changed the name to Visionaire, people said, "Oh yeah, you're that Visionaire, you're that guy, aren't you?" So gradually, the main company I worked with, AIT, became known as a different kind of company. So what really drives me in my function here is that it's a different approach to working, to change the experience we have of our working life, to make it more like real life. And some of their clients would start to want to come on visits to find out what was happening today. They could tell their families about the stuff we were doing, whether it was the world's first corporate allotment, or whether it was infiltrating a board meeting with a performer. So it was very dynamic and an extraordinary journey for me as an individual that I wouldn't have predicted. And maybe that's what has been something that has sustained me, that I have been maybe this thing early in performance and thinking, what can I do to push myself in a way that doesn't involve physical harm but can involve some other kind of risk. I guess I got a bit imprinted in, well, just see where it goes, it's okay.
We believe that we could be smart enough in a way to do it yourself, do it ourselves and make a way for that to work.
I think that's a really important phrase, being smart enough. And you know, the revelation to me was that I was smart enough to be in demand in a world that I knew nothing about. So I'd have other companies ringing up saying, can we get your Visionaire in to do something for us?
One of our biggest motivations, I suppose, is to take the energy that we are putting into somebody else's vision and company at the moment and translate the skills we've learned through supporting their company and doing it for ourselves. We can steal management's training and skills and people management and business models from the stuff we've been doing that we thought wasn't important for a long time. We thought the art was more important, and we were quite clear about that. We're like, oh, when can we give up these jobs and just do art? And then it was like, well, I was quite satisfied at my day at work today. So maybe there is something I actually like about some of it. But I think it is incredibly relevant that we're doing it at a time of focus on financial and austerity and all of these things and crisis surrounding money and our relationship with money. We're going to expose the business entirely by doing very physical things like chalking up the profit and loss, so you'll know if we're making money or not.
Is that going to be made public?
Yeah, completely public.
I think it's an interesting coincidence that Bailey Savage was based in Cambridge. That's where he was born.
Oh, right.
And it was a Kettle's Yard commission.
There was a good 5 years after graduating where we took ourselves very seriously. And we're trying to not do that now because it's boring.
It's tiring.
And it's tiring. And it's not that interesting.
Do you think that coincides with your profile going up too, because you're successful at the moment?
Well, we've just allowed other stuff in. So, for example, we've always tried to not overindulge in costume. So we always perform just in kind of like shift dresses or, what we're wearing today. And then about a year ago, we allowed costume into our practice, and it's been good. It's been good to the point where we now wear pineapples on our heads.
But I'd say, you're perhaps more serious about your practice now than you were. It's just a different kind of seriousness.
In other ways, yeah. We both have made some decisions recently that are towards this idea of giving up work. So in terms of where we live and how much rent we're paying and what our outgoings are quite low.
Over the last
at the
year,
moment.
So keeping your outgoings as low as possible.
Yeah, so we're
To
both
help you.
renting studio flats. Jen's just
so I've just totally given up
downsized. Sounds really
on the flat that I had before, so that my outgoings are less.
Well, maybe if you're being honest, I should say what it was like when I stopped being a billionaire. There was a period where I didn't really have any work, and I had lost my network. I'd let it go because I didn't need it. So there were a couple of years where I was sort of very much rebuilding a freelance career as an artist again. It was another kind of risky journey, if you like. Generally, the high achievers in our world seem to talk about risk a lot, that it's important to embrace it. So for me, I have a relationship with risk and uncertainty. I don't always manage it brilliantly, but I'm used to it, and I do kind of link it to the creative process. So
I think that's probably one of the main things that excites us.
Mm.
We want to take the risk. We don't need the big house or the whatever. We're kind of finding our way through what we're doing. We're finding it way more interesting than money.
We're so excited by new experiences, both of us.
And we don't want to be rich from our cafe. We want to provide for ourselves from it and keep it going.
people who are not artists who I know who look at the things that I've done are very envious, but I'm not wealthy. And it's a continuing kind of delight to be open to experiment with one's life and one's work. There are still no rules for me, really. There are still no rules.